Hello everyone, I'm making this video to show you some of the changes that we've made to DAFNI in the recent 3.0 release, particularly the bits that have changed from a user's perspective to kind of give you a good idea of how to set about changing your workflows, etc. to work with parameter sets. The first thing that I wanted to show was the changes that we've made to the model definition file and walk you through the changes that you'll need to make to your own definition files to make them work under the new version. The first thing obviously is to update the version of the API, which is now v1 beta 1. We decided to go with beta this time because it is quite a major step change, and older versions are no longer going to work on the platform, so you will need to perform these updates to your definition to make it work. But hopefully they're fairly light touch. So that's the first change. The second change is that we're moving away from any camel case in this file, so we're just going to be sticking with snake case. So if we change the API version there, and then display name as well to be snake case instead. The other thing we've done is we've removed tags from the definition file as well as type. This is just because no one was really using them, and we kind of felt that they were just a waste of space on the front end essentially, so we just decided to remove those for now unless there's demand to bring them back. One thing that needs to be added to this metadata section now is the publisher field. We decided to add this to bring the metadata a bit more in line with what the NID has, so we find that the publisher field is a useful thing to have because it kind of sets out that a model or a data set could be published by a specific organization or a specific person, so it gives the user the freedom to choose there. Next, we've changed the env section to be called parameters instead. We just think that's a bit more user friendly than I think it was previously env, so it's a bit more of a user friendly kind of thing. And the final thing to do is to change your data slot section. So because data sets are unique by their version ID, we think it's kind of pointless having both the IDs in here. So you can now strip that out to just leave this version ID by itself, like so. And it's probably also worth pointing out that if you want to have more than one data set in a data slot, you can do this so in a YAML array like this, but we're not going to do that in this example. So if I save that and head over to DAFNI, delete this stuff and browse for my model and my new definition, I should be able to upload those without a problem. And you'd get errors here that should show you the problems if there are any. So that kind of concludes the change to model definitions. I'll put a list of all the changes on the screen now, so feel free to pause and review those. The chief goal of this update is to split the idea of workflows on DAFNI into two separate components, the first being the actual sequence of steps that runs, and the second being the parameters that go into those steps, which influence how they behave. This update also adds workflow versioning, so you can now create new versions of your workflow by editing the underlying steps or metadata without having to create a brand new workflow each time. You can now also see the version list for your workflow as you can with models and datasets already. So you should find that all of your pre-existing workflows have been ported across to the new version, and they should all now be using parameter sets too. So our migration should have taken care of all that, but do let us know if you have any problems. One thing that we couldn't port across was the historic workflow instances, but you can still access those by clicking the button at the bottom of the workflows page. And this is kind of this exact same list as was at the bottom of the workflows page before, and so you can just click into those instances and see the statuses of the steps within them and check out the metadata there as well. But what I'll go ahead and do now is show you how to create a new workflow on DAFNI with the new parameter set system and show you the differences in that process. So to get started, just press the create workflow button in the top right and fill in some metadata on this page. I won't bother too much with this. Press continue, and then you're taken to the workflow builder, which is just the same as before, so you can pick our step types from the below. I'll just add a model step type with my model, and then add a visualization step after that in the same way that we typically would. I'll speed through this creation so you don't have to watch me do it. So once you've created your workflow steps, you can press continue. And now you're taken onto the new parameter set stuff. So obviously you'll notice in those previous workflow steps there was no opportunity for us to add parameters to that model, even though it does require some. So now we need to add them in our new parameter set and our first parameter set for this workflow. So I'll make a new parameter set called copy param. And then we have a box called create default parameter set. So this will literally just create you the parameter set with all the defaults from the model's definition file. This won't always work because sometimes people don't provide defaults in the model definition file, even though those parameters are required. So that is a case that can happen, in which case you will get an error down here and you'll have to just proceed to actually create the parameter set yourself. There can also be problems if someone has provided a default that's not valid, which I think can happen with JSON parameters, but not beyond that, I think. So you just want to be a bit careful clicking that box, but we won't click it for now and we'll go and actually fill in some parameters. So now we kind of get a reduced bit of our workflow because we don't need to pick parameters for the viz step, but we do for the model step. So if I click on that, then you get the parameter set and the data slots box that you used to get on the workflow builder page. And here I can obviously change all the parameters. So I'll set the sequence length of my Fibonacci to 40 and I'll tick this box to say copy data sets. I could also change the data slot if I wanted to as well from here. Now I press set and upload the workflow and parameter set, and then hopefully it should appear in this list. So once your workflow appears, you can click onto it and see the workflow metadata page, which has changed drastically from the previous version of DAFNI. So previously it was just this panel down here showing who it was published by, but now we've got the parameter sets and the instances panel, as well as this top versioning stuff as well. So you can explore all the versions of your workflow. You can edit the workflow to create a new version, and then you can also make default and deprecate versions as you can already with models as well. So that works in the exact same way. To actually run the workflow, you need to find a parameter set and then click this play button here, which will then start a new execution. You can also execute workflows from the main workflows page by pressing execute on here, selecting the parameter set that you want to execute with. Obviously we've only got one in this instance, but we can select that and then press execute, and that will execute in the same way as well. So to see the results of your workflows, you can click back into the workflow that you've just run, and there I can see the two instances that I've just executed, and I can click into those as per usual and see the individual step statuses as it runs, and you can interact with this in the exact same way that you used to with the existing workflow system. If I go back, the only other thing that you might want to do is to create a new parameter set. So you can do that by clicking the create button here. You can also edit an existing parameter set, which will change it in place. So it won't create a new parameter set, it will actually edit an existing one. So if I go into create a new one, fill in some stuff, I'll essentially make the same parameter set again, but I'll change the length of the Fibonacci sequence to 60, and then I'll carry on, click into here, change that to 60, tick that and upload, and then I've now got a second parameter set that I can use to execute my workflow. So I can click execute on that, and I can now see, okay, well, this new workflow was run with this parameter set. And that kind of concludes the changes. So thanks very much for watching, and do let us know if you have any issues.